Hello there, this is Denzian, and today I'm looking at this, which is my table board for Rorkes Drift, Battle of, back in 1879. This was a labour of love. I do like making terrain boards. This is probably one of the most detailed ones I've ever done. And do you know what? I've never even played a game on it. So I made this during lockdown. The buildings are from Foreground back in the day, released through Warlord Games when they did a sort of Black Powder starter box set with some minis thrown in. And then from there, the collection kind of grew, as you can see. I did play a game of Rorkes Drift back in the day when I got that kit, but since then I started work on this board, which was to make it a little bit more, you could say, historically accurate when it comes to topography. And it was something I did during lockdown when I had plenty of time on my hands. Made on some insulation boards. And I did go to Rorkes Drift. I went a few years ago with my wife as a sort of, you could say, honeymoon to South Africa, although I used it as an excuse to visit Zululand and just drag around all the battlefield sites, which of course included Isand Luana and Rorkes Drift. And while there, I took a lot of photos of the land, the lay of the land. Now, obviously, the battlefield has changed a lot over the years. The buildings aren't the original buildings, but the barricade line is clearly marked out on the ground, and you get a very good view of the hills and the little ridge that people forget that the drift was built on. So there's a little bit of a drop. So when they barricaded themselves in, they actually put the barricades on top of a slight rise to help with the defences. But if you don't know, I mean, if you've never seen the film Zulu or don't know anything about history, Zulu War, 1879, Natal colony, Britain decides to move in next door, take down the Zulus before they can do much about it. Zulus end up being, of course, a lot tougher than they thought they were going to be. And the massacre of Isand Luana shocked everybody. But on the back of that great Zulu victory, a number of Zulus went over the border into Natal. And on the border was Rorkes Drift, which was a missionary station used by the British Army as a supply depot and hospital. So there was only a handful of soldiers there, just over 100 or so. Some of them were in the hospital, wounded, or just ill with fever, most likely. When around 4,000 Zulus turned up. And the rest is history, as they say. Ended up being a great British victory, although probably the use of a bit of Victorian spin doctoring to counteract the disaster of Isand Luana earlier that day. But nothing can take away from the sheer pluck and survivability of those soldiers that day. They did a really good job, of course, fending off huge waves of Zulus. And it's not until you get loads of minis on the board like this that you kind of realise what they're up against. Now, in case you're wondering, I've got 540 or so Zulu miniatures on this board. They were an absolute nightmare to paint. Most of them are Warlord. To be honest, if I was going to do this again, I would not get the Warlord ones. I'd probably go for the Perrys, but they weren't around at the time when it comes to plastic box sets. There's some really nice Empress miniatures in here as well, which are metal. I think these guys here, some of these might be... No, they're not. They're plastic. Where are we? Well, see if you can spot them. You can usually tell because they're a little bit better. I believe it's these guys at the back here. Yeah, some of those guys there are metal. Of course, cheaper to get. The plastics, of course. I remember buying one of the big bulk boxes, so you get quite a lot of Zulus in it. And my wife had no idea I was still painting Zulus. Actually, she thought it was the same box, but I kept buying the box multiple times to get enough Zulus. And she had no idea I was spending so much money because she just saw the same box. And she thought, have you not got through them all yet? No, I haven't, no. But I think with the collection I have now, I will never have to paint a Zulu again in my life. Thank God. But they very rarely get out. Now, I do usually keep them on movement trays, like the one at the back. Although I need to redo these. I don't like the square movement trays. They're not Napoleonic soldiers marching in column. I think they should be a little bit more loose than that. So that's something I might revisit. It's just a bit of a pain to rebase quite so many miniatures. Well, and when it comes to rebasing, obviously I mean movement trays. I wouldn't replace all the bases. Whilst the British, I never get tired of painting red coats. I don't know why. Doesn't matter if they're 18th century or 19th century. I just miss it after a while. I mean, I need to paint some red. This is another mixture of miniatures, Empress miniatures. I think there's a few Foundry in there, Redoubt miniatures, Warlord miniatures, all sorts of collections. Because you just see certain companies do certain figures really well. So you think, yep, I'm having that one. I like the idea of wounded figures carrying ammo boxes around. And also the characters, which have been done multiple times by different companies now. Such as Surgeon Reynolds, got a couple of different versions of the surgeon working away outside the hospital building. Chard and Bromhead, the officers in charge. I think actually both those figures are Chard and Sergeant Bourne there. And Hitch, there's Hitch wounded and there's Hitch getting seen to by Surgeon Reynolds. So two different versions of the same real life person. There's Commissary Dalton. Pop that chap, somebody. Apparently that's the one line in the film that actually was said in real life. One character you don't get in the film is this Chaplain Smith, who went around with ammo in his pith helmet, giving out ammo to all the soldiers and saying, don't swear. remember you're a soldier, a Christian soldier, no swearing, please, while you're getting stabbed up by Zulus. Hook as well. I think that's the Perry Miniatures Hook, which is a realistic interpretation of him. Of course, the movie version of all these characters is also available from Empress, and they're really good as well. Really, really good. I did think at one point of making a movie version of Rorkes Drift, and I started it, but I just couldn't finish it. I just thought, what are you doing? You need a break from all this Zulu activity. So I never did the movie version, but I've often wondered why no one's done it. Why has nobody released a set of buildings based on the movie version? Because you've done movie version figures, why not the buildings? But hey-ho. But when it comes to the board itself, I looked at a lot of the, obviously, maps that are available, and going there physically was a real boon to get a look at the, as I say, the ridge. So you have the mealie bags, which is animal feed in the bags there for the horses, in the supply depot, which allowed them to barricade themselves up just in time. But they built it on top of this slight rise, using that drop, so the Zulus had a bit of a climb to get over, which really helped the defenders on this side of the battlefield. The only problem with being on this side of the battlefield, you may get a good defensive position from the oncoming hordes, but across the way was the Oscar Bird Hill, where Zulu snipers, although not the best shots, had a clear shot at the guys on this side of the barricade, so a lot of injuries were shot in the back, whilst the guys on this side, of course, had a better cover from people shooting from the hills, which is quite interesting. Also, when the light went down, the hospital was set ablaze, and that illuminated a lot of the battlefield and allowed, actually, the British to see more Zulus coming through the dark, which helped them, bizarrely. And then they built their final redoubt here, where they did their last stand, because, of course, once the hostel was on fire, they had to abandon this section of the compound and make their way to this area, where they built a final redoubt, which I haven't put on there. They haven't built it yet, look. In fact, some of the chaps are getting their bags there, just getting ready to start building one. A final redoubt here for their last stand, when the cattle kraal also got overrun by Zulus. Not the cattle kraal with cattle in it, that was just down here, there it is. It's just going off the board. This was an old kraal that had no animals in it at all, and the walls were quite run down. But it was a good defensive position until the Zulus snuck into it during the evening, and the British had to retreat to the final redoubt area once the hospital was also evacuated. But they evacuated and left their water cart in the middle of the battlefield there, so they had no water. There's a little doggy. So So they had to rush out and try and grab that, and they dragged the wagon back, which was a bit of a dangerous thing to do, as you can imagine, if it's no man's land. But also, on a Zulu perspective, a very dangerous thing to just rush headlong into oncoming, into the Martini Henry rifle fire. Very brave fellas, of course, of just doing this. There was a lot of, one of the trees has fallen over. There was a lot of cover though. There was an old garden wall, a bit of garden fencing as well, and quite a bit of shrubbery around the base here, which allowed them to sneak up a bit closer, especially in the dark. I've also got a dead horse, because I did read somewhere that one of the officers left his horse outside the compound and was probably one of the first victims as the Zulus rode in and just stabbed him up a bit. And here we have the Zulus trying to get into the hospital. Oh, someone's trying to stop them with his bayonet. But yes, they're trying to get in. Of course they do get in. And as we know, the building is caught alight. But as I go around the table, let's go around the other side. There's the latrine you can spot there. That came with the box set, the original Warlord Games box set. They had a couple of resin pieces. They had the privy out here, and across the field there was the cookhouse as well over here, where apparently one of the soldiers hid when the building, the hospital was set ablaze. He ran out the wrong door and he came out on this side straight into the Zulus, and I think he hid in the ditch and crawled into the cookhouse, and nobody spotted him in the dark. Very lucky man. I put this ditch in because apparently there was a ditch which was used as a bit of a runoff from the cookhouse. I probably made it a bit too deep, but never mind. There we go. Look at them all, blimey. And then the Oscarberg Hills, where snipers shot down. There's Shaka Zulu from Wargames Illustrated's Giants of History, is it? Range of miniatures. But even though it's a long time period, he's a great military leader figure to have, leading your Zulu forces. I made a little cave as well, because there was quite a few little nooks and crannies on the rock. It's quite hard to do Rorkes Drift as a miniatures game. The one time I did it, I used black powder back in the day. I would probably do something different if I was going to do it again. I don't know what, to be honest with you. I did download some rules a while ago which had this in it as a scenario, as well as other battles of the Zulu War. So I thought I might look at that again. Can't remember the rules off the top of my head, but I shall dig that out. Obviously, you've got waves of Zulus coming in, and you've got areas of the compound you might lose, and is the table too small? Is it too big? My table, I think, is big enough. I started with the hills. The hills are a little bit further back in reality, so I thought, well, it could be the beginning of the hills. Obviously, they go higher than that, so you don't have to be forcing it on the table a bit too close to the buildings. None of these buildings are stuck on, by the way. You can just lift these off, which means I can use this board for other games of other things if I wanted to. But yeah, I've never played Rorkes Drift on this board, and I need to sort that out. It seems like such an effort to have built this in the first place and never to do a game on it. But how many of us do that? You know, we spend all our time and effort putting something together, and then you might play a game once and then never again. But such a fan of the history. As I say, I've been to the site, and I found San Luana to be a little bit more moving as a location. Rorkes Drift is, because it's got a school next to it, it looks like it's lost a lot of its character, because it's so built up in the area around it, but still captures the imagination. But yeah, I just thought I'd get it out and put it all together, and now I've done that, I've got to put it all away again. Look at them all these minis, blimey. So yeah, just a different type of video, looking at one of my table builds, what it looks like. Don't know what you think. Have you done anything like this? And if you've got a good idea for rule systems for doing Rorkes Drift, let me know, because I'm always willing to try a new game and see what works. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed my collection. Hope you enjoyed my fallen trees. my dead horse and my privy. But I'll see you next time.